One day I was walking down the street on the sidewalk, and this voice came to me, this thought that you have nothing to be jealous of. You have your own life to live. And this voice, it seemed as though it was coming from the outside, like it was so clear as a friend that talks to you down the street. And this voice actually was coming from within. It was the voice of reason, which I learned, throughout my life. I've had this voice to bring enlightenment to my experiences, including the time where my father got angry because I had told one of his family members, that he was abusing my mother. And I remember him yelling at me, and I went inside, and this voice said that no, he is wrong. You have no right to abuse someone. That he wasn't willing to speak the truth. And this, I was probably 3 or 4 years old. And so that day on that sidewalk was an awakening for me, because it's that those truths that remind you of who you are, that remind you that you don't have to be angry, jealous, afraid, envious, bitter. They are wake up calls to the truth that is within you. And when we look at I briefly looked at the definition of jealous and envy. And envy is when you have discontent. It is a state of being discontent about what you have and what someone else have. Now, we didn't have a lot growing up. My mother, she had, when she moved to Illinois, she had $4,000, 2 suitcases, and she said they weren't the best looking suitcases. So, and 3 children under the age of 5, one being 1 years old, and me, I was the oldest, and I was about 4 going on 5. And we lived in the back room, this one room in my grandmother's house. My mother and I slept in a full size bed. My 2 brothers slept um, in a half bed or a twin bed. And how she cared for my youngest brother, of course, had his bedding for him. And eventually we moved over across the street to a house that many would consider a shack. Many of the houses in our in our community were very old and fallen apart, floor, old cabinets, old stove, all of that. There was a bathroom that we would use, all 4 of us would use, and even that, the floors were caving in. But we had a home that I was content, because I knew that things could have been different. My mother was courageous enough and determined enough to care for her 3 children and provide a home. But as you grow up, and as you grow up, I shouldn't say but, because I don't want to totally get rid of everything that I just said. And as you grow up, you see other family members, cousins, that have their father, that they're doing nice. They have cars. My mother didn't get a car until probably 3 or 4 years after being there. I mean, she didn't get a car until she was 30 years old, her driver's license. So at that point, I was 10. So we didn't have a car for a long time. We, against our home and our clothes, secondhand stores. And so it's quite easy to allow the envy weed to come sink in. And sometimes you don't even realize that it's a part of you. And just other things that I was subconscious or unconsciously comparing a little of my life with others. Questioning my image, if I was pretty or not, questioning my belongings, feeling like, we, one side that we had everything, and the other side that we we didn't have as much as others had. We had it, but it wasn't of quality. And I think I was I was somewhere in high school when I was walking over to this family member's house. And it was like everything just kind of opened up. Like this weight that I didn't know I was carrying, of comparing my life to this person. And um, to the realization that I too have a life. And it's so easy when we become envious of others or discontent about our life that we have forgotten who we are. We have forgotten that we too have the ability to have things. We have forgotten the importance of being content, the importance of dreaming, the importance of realizing that our lives can be so much more. Because from that day onward, I started focusing more on what I can do with my life. I went to college. I got a degree. I got my apartment. I just started living my life instead of comparing my life to others. And it wasn't the type of comparison where I was angry or bitter. It was more of, okay, that's just kind of, you feel the uneasiness, the kind of uneasiness that is there, and you're only conscious of it at certain times. Um, but it is a weed that can continue to grow and foster into, I believe, jealousy, that state, that extreme state where you become hostile and you become bitter and you become resentful. All because, not because of the emotions themselves, the feelings, because they come as a result of our state of being. They come as a result of believing that we are not good enough, that we are not worthy. And ultimately it is a state of forgetting who you are, because I believe that we are seeds sown into the earth. And with our spiritual formation, we there in the seed is the spiritual blueprint of who we are and all that we are capable of being and growing into, because this is just who we are. Our fruit, our gifts, our talents, our abilities intermingle with our experiences. The key is not allowing the experiences to cloud or distort our state, our spiritual state of being. And when we start comparing our lives to others, when we start believing that we're not enough, or we're not pretty enough, or that we don't belong, or we don't have the best quality, and we start questioning our identity, questioning our purpose and our meaning of life, that is not being who we are. That is allowing the circumstances that we see to impact what we think, we are. And it's like, does the egg come before the chicken, or the chicken before the egg? And I believe that our thoughts of ourselves will continue to perpetrate, or continue to grow what we see. We will continue to experience our thoughts as they ground themselves in us, as they root inside of us, until we change our thoughts. And that's what this whole podcast is about: creating a generational love cycle, dismantling the thoughts, the weeds, the negative emotions and feelings as a result of not seeing ourselves as we are. And I've put them into this segment, or this portion of Create a Generational Love Cycle, called the seeds that we plant. And I believe that the solution is always in the problem. That if I am experiencing envious behaviors, if you're experiencing envious behavior, jealousy, anger, rage, envy is what I'm talking about today, then it's to go back and to change how you view yourself. Because that's what happened to me that day, is that there was a different perception that was given to me. That just because I am experiencing this, just because I have experienced this, doesn't mean I have to continue in that state of envious. Doesn't mean I need to continue being discontent. Doesn't mean I need to want something that somebody else have. It means that I can create the life that I want. I can create, I can harness the thoughts, create visual pictures, because that's what I started doing of my son, of having children. I just talking to my kids about them running down the hall. I had that vision, that visualization first in the condo as I sat, propped myself on a couch, and I sat and I intentionally visualized two children running down the hall. And they became the two children running down halls of new houses that we would see, going to houses. And I would say, why are you running? And then I thought back, oh, it's because I visualized them running. I brought them into here running, seeing a thumb from a thumb, a foot on a picture that I put on the filing cabinet next to my desk in our two bedroom condo. And I would look at that daily. And from the previous thought as a teenager, um, wanting a twin boy and girl, children too, a boy and a girl, that people often ask, are they twins? Or definitely would ask when they were younger. And so when we think about being envious of someone, it is something that is a distorted picture, distorted reality. You think about people that have harmed others because of their envious. They were envious of them. They became jealous and bitter and full of rage and resentment. And we have to be mindful of the thoughts that we're continually bringing into ourselves. And that's daily reflection. That is owning up to our thoughts, being honest with ourselves. It is taking a step back and to look at, what is it that I am creating in my life? What am I thinking about? Because jealousy, envious, they can distort your facial expression. They just can distort you physically, if you allow them to continue and to bring other weeds in of resentment and bitterness. You think about arthritic conditions. You think about frown faces that look like they're forever frowning. You know that they're forever sad, forever angry. That how these weeds, they grow inside of us, and they begin to distort us physically in diseases and illnesses. And so envious is not our natural state. If you are envy of someone, it is time to really look at get it to the root of the matter. And the root of the matter is with all weeds that we allow to transform us, to transfigure us, is that we have forgotten who we are. We are not seeing ourselves in our true light, in the way that we should be, the way that we are. And it is to take our minds off others and to really begin to look at ourselves in a different light, to look and see, what can I create? What gifts and abilities and talents do I have? Why am I here? And I believe truly, when we ask with sincerity those questions, when we truly want to know, we will receive the answer. But we have to take time to ask. We have to take time to seek. And when we do, we will find. We will really find the truth and know there is no reason to be envious of another. There is every reason to be happy for another person, because happiness are thought seeds that we're planting in ourselves. And as we begin to be happy for others, and that was one of the things, I was happy for her. I congratulated her, and I was doing that throughout. But then there was that part of me that kind of felt like, wow, I would like to have that. And I went from someone who would like to someone who was living her own life, who was living out the thoughts that she had, the dreams, the things that she wanted, to continue even to this day, to continue to seek at every stage of my life, who am I to be? And to realize that more and more. Because envy is when you start envying, and it's not to say that that was the only time that I experienced it, but when you experience those emotions, when you feel bitter, when you feel envious, when you feel discontent about your life based on what somebody else has, their belongings, then it's time to take action, take thought action. And sometimes it is learning to be content with what you have, but also too with striving for more of what you are. And so I wanted to share that because I know there's a lot behind greed and hatred and vengeance and homicides and suicides. And I would not doubt that sometimes envy is at the root of it. I don't know because I don't know everybody's life, but I do know that it is a powerful weed that can really destroy you from the inside out. They can invite other weeds and can have you becoming something that you're not. But the voice of reason, truth, realization of who you are will put you back on track to bring out the best in you, to bring out your true nature. And we don't need to be jealous, but happy for one another because we all have something great inside of us. We all have our own lives to live, and we have nothing to be jealous of or envious of. This is Timika Chambers with Create a Generational Love Cycle. We get rid of the cycle of pain. We break the cycle of pain by dismantling the thoughts that created it in the first place. And the way we create a cycle of love is that we continue to plant, we continue to water, we continue to nourish, to nurture those spiritual seeds that we have already inside of us. And they're all at the roots of all of them is love. The roots of unity, the roots of grace, the root of mercy, the root of health, the root of harmony, of wealth and abundance is love. I'll talk to you soon. As always, make this lifetime great because you have the power within you to do so.